Hey, refined investors, welcome back to the channel. If you're into motivation, well-being, and of course, investment and finance tips, and you're in the right place. And I'm glad you're here because today we've got a really good one. We want to talk about whether or not we are in fact in a bear market or not. And so, because you've seen the headlines and you've heard people panicking, you've seen it on CNBC, you've seen it all over YouTube, because I know you have, but the data perhaps might be telling us a completely different story. And so today we're going to jump in and sort of discuss what this really looks like. So let's break down why we are not actually in a true bear market for these cryptos and for the sort of general crypto market as a whole, even though we do see, as I talked about yesterday, sort of the decoupling. But that does not mean, of course, that other cryptos will not sort of follow suit still. There's still this general idea of where we are in the market. So here we go. Before we jump in, though, let's quickly talk about what exactly is a bear market. A bear market isn't a dip. It isn't just a few red candles or even a sequential number of red candles. It's not even a pullback. A real bear market is price drops 20 to 30% or more. The decline is sustainable over time. Demand is weak. Volume dries up and long-term holders begin capitulating. Now, I know what you're thinking. We've had a lot of 10-year whales selling off their crypto in mass amounts, selling off their Bitcoin. You're like, whoa, they're selling. Well, that's true, but you got to hear this out. It's not necessarily that they're doing it because we're in a bear market. When you're at 100,000 and they've had a heck of a run, you don't know what sort of their investment thesis is, right? They might have other plans. They might have investment opportunities that they want to pursue. They may feel perhaps that this is a dip coming, a big one, and they want to cash out and come back in at a low rate. It could be a mistake. Just because they're a whale doesn't mean they don't get it wrong sometimes. We don't know what the actual reason is. That aside, it does not actually mean or necessarily mean we're in a bear market, even if the whales are selling, right? There's a lot of talk also that the fact that whales are selling means that now we're sort of like spreading out the positions and the ownership of BTC and Ethereum, where it's no longer consolidated in a few hands. Rather, it's beginning to become more like, as they talked about, I think it was IPO, in that it's really their IPO moment where it's beginning to make its way through the population. We'll see. Here, now let's talk about why Bitcoin specifically is not in a bear market. Let's start with Bitcoin because obviously he's the king crypto, right? Yes, Bitcoin recently did pull back. In fact, 27% if you look at its highs of 125 to about where we are in the 91 range and change. And headlines are in fact saying very scary things to us, right? It's saying, crypto winter is coming. But here's the real picture. This is a correction. It is not actually a structural breakdown, because a structural breakdown would refer to things actually, there would be a ton of black swan things happening, and we in fact just don't see that. It's not in the cards right now, right? Everything you're hearing from BlackRock, etc., is just good news, and we're going to get into that. Institutional demand is still present. Long-term holders are not mass selling, other than the ones we talked about, whales who were perhaps taking profits and looking at other investment opportunities. We don't know. But again, let's look at the institutional side of things and look at the pullback compared to other pullbacks we've seen where Bitcoin would dive 50%, in a matter of a very short window. Volatility today for Bitcoin is very, very different. It's like a 10% correction, and yet there's no bad news from a more micro standpoint. Yeah, you hear the macros here and there, but again, Bitcoin is still holding its macro trend line, right? And the pullback came after making a major new high, which is expected in these markets because we talk about the volatility. So a correction does not equal a bear market. And Bitcoin is still, of course, showing strong foundational support. It always has, and it continue will, and that support gets stronger and stronger and stronger as the foundation gets tougher over time. Now, let's go into Ethereum a bit. Ethereum is still fundamentally strong, right? So let's look at it. Prices have pulled back, and that's true. But the on-chain metrics tell a completely different story, right? We got to think of utility now. 59% of Ethereum supply is still in profit. That is not it's not what you typically see in a bear market, right? Bear market is usually where you're so down, where you're down in the 20s perhaps of people in profit, or even less. Ethereum's MVRV, which measures overvaluation or undervaluation, it's simply it's not overheated. It's actually far from that danger zone at this moment. The Ethereum ecosystem is still extremely active, which we know. Adoption is huge, whether it's Wall Street or Main Street. We're seeing a ton of adoption. We're seeing a ton of utility on the chain. Smart contracts, DeFi, staking, layer twos, none of this has collapsed. In fact, they are building while everybody's panic selling, right? And that's typical of what we see in sort of these correction phases. So why is Ethereum cooling off? The underlying fundamentals do not match a true bear market. Now, let's hop into XRP. XRP's surprising strength, in fact, paints a picture, right? And here's why things get interesting for XRP. XRP's price action has been under pressure. That's very true, just like all the others. And technically, the chart looks weak, in fact, but at the same time, XRP is getting massive inflows, right? We just had the first spot ETF get approved, and it's the strongest in 2025, even better than Solana. $28 million came into XRP in a single week, and that's not what typically would happen in a bear market. There are also signs of a bullish divergence right now happening and forming within XRP on the charts. This means price is falling, but momentum is quietly building underneath. And so while XRP has a mixed picture, no one's denying that, the presence of strong inflows tells us we're not watching capitulation. This is consolidation, guys. It is not collapse. They are absolutely vastly different things, and it's important to always kind of regroup yourself so you're not one of those people panic. So this segues into what do we do with this information, what to watch for next. Steady institutional, right, and is constantly coming in. Remember that. So if we're not in a bear market, what would actually confirm that we are? Here are the major signals I want you to watch for. Keep an eye out, keep your ears sort of close to the ground so you understand. We're looking for major support levels breaking decisively. And what I mean by that, it means consistently and aggressively where it doesn't even look like there's any sort of rebound, if you will. On-chain data collapse, that's huge, right? Things like active users, transactions, and inflows, very, very important. Again, things we're not seeing right now. We're seeing adoption, we're seeing utility, we're seeing building, stablecoin growth, right? All these things are happening, even as the market sort of, kind of tells a different story. And another thing is the ecosystem usage falls off a cliff. Well, it's still strong across BTC, Ethereum, and XRP. We're not seeing ecosystem usage falling. Until these multiple red flags flash together, we're in a correction, guys. You got to remember that. And we're not currently in a full, bear market. So these are the way I was able to sort of understand what's happening just based on the data that's out there. And so I want you to, the headlines are dramatic, and I know that, and that's why I wanted to sort of like get you back into the middle, right, of the range. I don't want you to be too far on the left, too far on the right, too optimistic, too pessimistic. I want you to see the truth, the technicals. So, and for me, as far as I'm concerned, the fundamentals are strong. The evidence does not point to a true bear market at the moment. Yes, volatility is real. Yes, corrections happen, but staying informed and stay patient is how you win the long game. I always tell you guys it's important to play the long game because crypto is a long game. I'm talking 5, 7, 8, 10 years. And so if you did find this breakdown helpful, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. I'd love to hear from you. Put a comment in the chat because this is really a dialogue, right? I learned from you guys, hopefully, and you are hopefully taking something from this as well. Are you bullish? Are you cautious, or somewhere in the middle? And what are you doing? I'd love to hear that. Remember, guys, this isn't financial advice. This is just to help paint a picture. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you guys real soon in the next one. Have a good one.